Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole. It's Sunday evening, July 13th. This is the week 3 announcement for Political Science 1013, summer 2025 on the second 7-week schedule. All right, everybody. We're through with exam 1. We're now moving on to the material for exam 2, which is coming up on Wednesday the 23rd, 10 days from now as I'm speaking to you. The material is Unit 3 on mass media and Unit 4 on the Constitution. Okay. Now, everybody, this week on Wednesday and Thursday, the 16th and 17th, we have our second discussion. You've been sent a link to a review of a book. It's about President Biden's performance in the debate with Donald Trump last year and his subsequent withdrawal from the presidential race and the controversy that followed about his condition and whether he was up to continuing to serve or to run for re-election as president. There's been a tremendous amount of excitement and controversy about this, and it raises questions about whether his condition was reported adequately in the weeks and months leading up to that June 27th, 2024 debate. The book is called Original Sin. So you have a link to that, and that is what we will discuss Wednesday and Thursday. Now, everybody, Unit 4 on the Constitution is much longer than Unit 3 on the media. I would spend a couple of days on the media unit and then look at your Constitution unit because you've got a fair amount of reading. You've got a good many chapters from the textbook to look at, in addition to the Federalist Papers, which are in the appendix to your textbook, okay? In addition to the class notes that are up on the course website for Units 3 and 4. So you have a much longer assignment for Unit 4, and you will want to get started on that in the next couple of days. I mentioned that in one of the announcements that I sent out yesterday, Saturday. Now, in the media unit, everybody, there are a couple of things we're trying to accomplish. Number one, we want to look at the media landscape, different kinds of media, and of course, the big issue these days is new media versus old media. By old media, principally we mean television and print media, television and newspapers, whereas new media would refer to online media, websites, social media, podcasts, okay? New media seems to be gaining. Old media hasn't completely gone away. Where the balance will end up being struck remains to be seen. But politicians, pressure groups, political parties have a tremendous task ahead of them trying to adjust to this new media environment in which old media has been pushed aside to some extent by new media. So we try to look at the leading media outlets in all categories, so you will be familiar with those. Then, everybody, we go on from there to discuss issues that arise in media coverage. Among these include sometimes the emphasis on sensationalism or celebrity stories in the media, the upheaval that has taken place in the media industry due to mergers and acquisitions and the shuffling and reshuffling of the ownership of media properties. Above all, the issue of political bias in media, which is something that's been with us since I was a kid and perhaps even before. It's hard to say very much of interest at all about the news without offering some interpretation, and then issues of bias creep in. So we try to offer some evaluation of that bias issue, which is a controversy that will be with us for the foreseeable future. So we wanted to give you some material for food for thought on that question. Okay. There's some interesting links in the announcement I sent out called Unit 3 links. You'll see links to new media websites and also a couple of articles that may help us to assess where things stand with regard to the media here 1/4 of the way through the 21st century. The Unit 4 links, okay, these are some videos that I've been encouraged to forward to everybody and introduce so that people have an idea of what to do and what not to do, say in case of a traffic stop, which can end up getting people in trouble. Encounters with law enforcement can happen with students of undergraduate college age or others, so it's wise to know what you are entitled to do, what you should not do in a situation like that. So I hope you will take a look at a little bit of that and the materials that come from the videos that come from the Flex Your Rights organization. Starting to look at Unit 4, and we really should begin with it because we have so much material there. What we try to do there, everybody, is we begin at the very beginning of American history, which is sometime in the early 1600s when the territory that would become this country first was settled. We go for about 150 years before independence is declared. For much of that time, there was very little here, not many people. The population grew gradually. A situation arose in the 1750s and 60s when the British government reached a point it felt like it had to clamp down on the colonies in North America. Up to that point, they passed had been an afterthought. But it became necessary to fight what became known as the French and Indian Wars, with the French and the allies among the indigenous tribes, Native Americans, waging war and encroaching on the frontier of what would come to be known as the American colonies. And money had to be raised, and so taxes were imposed at a level they had not been before. And as we know, that then gives rise to the slogan, no taxation without representation. In general, what happened was we had more of a ironclad, iron-fisted rule over the colonies from Great Britain beginning in the 1850s and 60s than had been known before in what over a century of American history. Well, one thing leads to another. Speeches are given, organizations formed, there's a Continental Army, shots eventually are fired, independence is declared, and eventually won. Initially, we were operating under a document that you could describe as our first Constitution, but actually was called the Articles of Confederation. A decade or so after independence had been won, any number of problems began to creep up. And it was thought that many of the problems could be traced back to constitutional issues. Constitutional revision was needed, if not a completely new constitution. And so a constitutional convention was held, and as we know, that led to scrapping the Articles of Confederation, the drafting and the ratification of an entirely new constitution. 7 articles with 10 amendments added relatively quickly thereafter that became known as the Bill of Rights. Okay? And it's at that point where the Federalist Papers come in. These were essays. You could look at them as something like op-ed columns in the newspaper, written largely by James Madison and Alexander Hamilton, arguing that the Constitution was a good idea and had good features and should be adopted. Okay. You have in the appendix to your textbook a Federalist number 10 and Federalist number 51 written by James Madison. And here, this is the most definitive statement, these 2 essays, about why the Constitution is the way it is. Madison was a great student of constitutions throughout history. He knew what kind of constitutional features different regimes had adopted. So he became a prominent figure at the Constitutional Convention and thereafter, eventually becoming president, of course, for a time. All right. We want to continue on from there, looking at some more details of the Constitution. We go over the first 7 articles in some detail, and many, although not all of the amendments. And we go on to look at the issues of civil rights, civil liberties, and federalism, each of which are treated in a separate chapter in your textbook. So we'll look at the Constitution Unit in a bit more detail next week. Okay? Don't forget, discussion this week on Wednesday and Thursday, the 16th and 17th. Looking ahead to our exam, our midterm exam, next week on Wednesday, the 23rd. Take it easy, study hard. Contact me in case of any problems, issues, or questions at david.cole@opsu.edu or through the course website. So we hope you'll take part in the discussion Wednesday and Thursday, and we'll be talking to you once again a week from now at this time.